Hi, it's Rick here from Art Guitar. Welcome back to the podcast. And we are so privileged today to be joined by Max from Neural. If you don't know who Neural are, well, it's only the best-selling musical instrument in the world right now today. So Max, thank you so much for joining us here in Dubai.
It's so nice to be here.
Do you know what, Max? People have heard me say this a few times, but until a couple of years ago, we are the biggest seller of tube amps in the Middle East. And literally, if you came through the door with an amplifier that didn't have a tube in, you wouldn't get through the door. And now we're the biggest seller of Neural DSP in the Middle East. And how did we get there? How did you convince a Luddite like me that this product can replace what we always thought was irreplaceable?
I think it's a bit of a combination. So I think it's technology. Like technology's reached a point where we've broken through with what we do, so that there's no kind of compromises really. Like it still feels the way you want it to. But then there's also people are starting to see the advantages of a device like this, where you were telling me earlier how most people live in apartments in Dubai. Then that's probably not an amazing situation to have an amplifier in, at least if you've got
attenuators are pretty big here. That's for sure.
That's a thing answering one kind of need.
Yeah.
And then there's a multitude of different advantages. You can travel with this super easily. If you've got one amp that does one or two, or if you're really bougie, maybe 3 sounds, whereas this has got hundreds of thousands of available
it's not
combinations.
Even so that for me, I could always see, and with the other modelers, the benefit of having this one item instead of the dozens that we like to collect and stuff. But in the back of my mind and in the back of everybody else's mind was always this kind of nagging doubt, but it doesn't quite sound the same. And I'll just tell you a very quick story. Literally 2 weeks ago, best friend of mine in the region here, he said, I've got to see this product before these guys come out here. And I sent it out to him. And 2 days later, he said, "What have you done to me?" I'm like, "What have I done to him?" He said, I'm not playing anything else. I've got some of the best tube amps in the world, most of which he actually got from here. And now he's just playing the Neural DSP. And that is tone as well as convenience.
Yeah. So I think that's why I said, it used to be there was a compromise. So, having a modeler, there was always benefits in terms of usability or convenience, but then there was always, there was some trade-off, it didn't sound as good, or, it wasn't easy to use, or it was cumbersome or something. So we've taken a really modern approach. I think what a lot of people don't realize that they love about this is actually the usability of it. So if you have an idea of something you want to do, then it's really quick and easy to just
So it's the iPhone of the amp world in a way.
It's a good comparison. We've tried to make things, we've tried to take that kind of approach of how can we give you more time to play guitar? So what actually your friend is probably experiences this sounds great, and I was playing guitar really, really quickly. Or if I want to change sound, I'm again you're not having to unplug and put in a new amp or change your. So we've saved you time so you can spend more time doing the thing you love, which probably isn't playing with this. It's playing with these.
Which
that's
all
what we try
sounds so eminently sensible, yet I thoroughly believed was completely unachievable as well. Just tell me about the company a little bit, because everything you've said about the drivers for it makes sense, but again, to a Luddite like myself, just seemed completely impossible. So how have Neural, ahead of everybody else, been able to create this product? Tell me about the business. Have you got 1,000 analysts in a dark room somewhere that are just coding away and making it like this? How do you get to this point?
So the interesting thing about Neural is we actually started as a super small team. I think in the beginning there were maybe 6 or 7 people, and we're very early adopters for using technologies such as machine learning. We embedded a thing called like synaptic modeling. We've taken the process of like coding and modeling amplifiers and tried to automate it and leverage, like new AI technologies as much as we can. Because previously, when people were coding or like modeling things, you can measure a circuit board to the like nth degree, and there's a lot of like unknown magic in a tube amp schematic where the distance between certain components might affect and does affect the sound, or what kind of power you're getting into it, like whether it's perfectly on voltage, whether it wavers slightly, that affects.
So all those correlations are, to program that.
So there's an infinite amount of correlations that you can't, you can try coding per component, but it's the combination of all of these things and the little faults that actually make it like live and breathe and actually feel the way you expect it to feel. And that's a hard thing. And for a human to sit and code that is years and years and years, and it still might not be right. Whereas we started with what's called like a black box modeling technology. So we would, train a neural network on a large set of sample data from an amplifier. And what it would pick up on over time is those little idiosyncrasies. And when we say it was black box, we're not actually sure what made the difference there. But the result is at the end, you get a playable thing that feels true to life to the point where, if you have, I don't know if this amplifier here has got one. So on our like Brit 2203 here, if you crank the master volume and play with the presence and then like listen.
Could you give us a quick quick show?
So here's a thing that like doesn't happen in other like modelers or other coding things. So this is literally the first factory preset when you get a Quad Cortex. So if we take the presence control and I just sweep that while it has some effect, but it's not crazy. Yeah. Whereas if I bring this master down and compensate with the volume and then play with the presence, you hear that sweep's really dramatic.
Yeah.
That's something that would actually happen on a real like amplifier because you're introducing more negative feedback into the signal. And so the presence control isn't able to open or close as much. That's something you wouldn't get in any other model, but because we've detailed it so deeply and with machine learning, with AI, with all these other technologies, for better or worse, all the kind of bugbears that exist with true live amplifiers exist also in our models. So it's a warts and all approach.
And a few things that completely differentiate it for me is, it does all these amazing things, and yet you're constantly updating it as well. So it's not like I bought it and I've got it. It's, there was a recent update and that was phenomenally successful. I mean, tell us a little bit about that.
So you're talking about CoreOS 3.0, which introduced the beginning of our plugin compatibility features. So we don't just make Quad Cortex, we also make a suite of plugins with either amp companies or with artists like Rabia, who's here with us, and his guitar. We've got a product with him. And what we always wanted and had envisioned for Quad Cortex is that users of those plugins at home could take those sounds on the road within Quad Cortex. Little did we know back in 2020 or whenever it was we announced this, that would be such a monumentally difficult task. Just from an engineering standpoint, a licensing standpoint, a usability standpoint, any vector you look at it from, it is a really difficult task as a business to achieve.
Of course. And also do you have people like in the company who like know how like the sound of a 60s plexi so well as well that they literally they're like, that's it, you've got it as well.
We've got a couple of people who are I believe their job title is algorithm validators, but I could be wrong. And
I would love that on a business card.
That's just a really fancy way of saying they hear real good. They're like, one of them was like an amplifier tech and builder, so he knows you can change like one fuse and something, and he can tell you, or you can change the power. And he sits and listens to those. But just quickly back on the plugin compatibility and CoreOS 3.0, that, like I said, that was a very difficult challenge for us to get and match. Not only it meant we had to rebuild our plugins kind of from scratch to be able to run on this architecture, but we also had to do that without changing how they sound, which is a difficult thing because they're, beloved, and what is the point of making this work here if it doesn't sound like it does over there?
Yeah.
Anyway, we jumped through those hoops. We conquered the engineering mountain, and it's finally happening.
And you certainly did. And one, proof point of that, and this goes right into our job title as well. I mean, if you look at the roster of artists that are using this product now, and actually you can model their sound through this product.
Yeah.
I mean, these guys are, the world's best guitarists, and they're not going to put their name to these sounds unless they believe you have nailed that. How important is that, and how difficult has that been for you to get them on board with it?
Do you know what? It's not been incredibly difficult to get people on board. That hasn't been the challenge. I think as someone who works in artist relations, I'm in like an incredibly privileged position to be doing this for a company that's product speaks for itself. So I don't have to spend a lot of time chasing. I don't do a lot of like outbound sales, so to speak.
It's the other way around, I guess.
It's the other way around. People are interested. And the thing is, like, this offers so many different layers of convenience to people on all sizes of stages all over the world that it is a genuinely useful thing. The challenge actually has been in helping those people get the best like out of it, or work to their situation. How to integrate it, or they've got these ideas like, hey, I really want to do, like a lot of artists that I work with have an existing guitar rig that they've been touring for a while. They know inside and out. They're maybe unhappy with like how it sounds, and they've got like grand dreams of doing something more. So one part is educating them. Okay, how do I get you to where you are today? Or if that's such a limited thing, I'll be like, well, have you considered that this will allow you to do this and that, and now you can do this? And it's funny because when I have those conversations with people, you can see always a watershed moment where they're like, I can do, and like they start having these ideas.
Amazing. So you're talking to these guys who like we literally idolize because of how well they play, and they're coming to you saying, how can I make myself sound better in a way, or and then updating, and and the user gets to update that as well, which also that keeps it fresh and relevant all the time as well.
That's it. Yeah, that's it as well. And like the other thing is, so we have artists that, this as a product, because of what it is, this is like a guitar. This is the center of your entire guitar tone. So, some people used to have, or some people still do have rigs where you've got 2 or 3 different amps, a multitude of different pedals, cables and stuff. There's no centerpiece of that rig because it all works in concert. Whereas some people just use this live. They plug into this and it goes to front of house. So this is their entire tone. So we're asking for quite a lot of trust and quite a lot
I've spoken to a couple of people who've put their whole reputation onto that box, and 100%.
It's like so people are doing that, and it makes us like infinitely happy. Like, and I'm not kidding or exaggerating when I say it, but like when we hear people like, you helped me do this and I've put my trust in this, like we really, really care about that.
Yeah.
But so those people, like power users basically, are like big artists, they come to us with feature requests, or they're like, hey, do you know that this part annoys me? And we listen to that so intently because they're like, well, you're right. There's obviously a use case for that. So there's a bunch of features that have come up.
That's out of the use cases. So we're talking to Rabia about that.
Literally, if Rabia will text me, like, I really wish it did this, and I'll relay that information to designers and to our like product team, and they'll do things. So like it's always from a usability standpoint.
But
Those are like
and
the
it's a
quickest
real
ones.
mutual. There's a symbiotic relationship going on there. You know, we talked about Rabir and the Stormzy gig and stuff, but you know, him literally putting his career
Such a
on the
nail-biting
line
moment.
through the Neural. But
Yeah.
in some ways, it was symbiotic and mutual, because the reputation of the Neural was also being put on the line, because you know, he came out and said, "This is the piece of kit I created that moment from," you know, and
Yeah. That, honestly, that moment for us was, you know, when you see pictures of like Cape Canaveral or Kennedy Space Station at the moon landing, and they're all like, that was a very smaller version of that for
I
us,
can
like
imagine.
watching live
I
as
can
this thing
imagine.
happened.
Was so fortunate to have you come all the way out here to visit us in
I feel
Dubai.
fortunate to be invited.
Well, so again, that symbiotic relationship, you know, but we have 3 amazing workshops to look forward to still.
Yep.
What are we going to be seeing there?
So Rabia and I have been doing this for a while. We've done these workshops kind of all around the world now, which is amazing. And what we always try and do is we want to give people an introduction to Quad Cortex, explain some of the thinking behind it, show off some of the cool features and like why it's exciting. But then we also want to take away, I think some people might view a device like this as a little bit daunting, a little, like, you know, there's a learning curve.
Me.
Well, exactly.
Still, yeah.
Which there's a little bit of a learning curve, but it's not very steep. And we want to take that kind of anxiety away. And what we do is, Ruby and I literally from scratch will build a brand new preset like that he would use in a gig.
Yeah.
And it takes, I think the actual building of the preset takes 15 minutes, like just with us talking and like having jokes and, you know, explaining our thinking as well. And we do it with everything factory in the box. Like there's no, you're from the UK, you remember Blue Peter. There's no, here's one we made earlier in a secret studio that sounds better. We just use stock things. And the idea is if you buy a Quad Cortex that day at that show, you can go home and do exactly what we've done and create that exact sound with everything that's already there.
We're just so fortunate to have that out in Dubai and for you to come all that way to do that. And as I say, I'm still that Luddite that still has in the back of my mind, but it can't sound like the 64 Vox AC30 that we've got in there in the back room. And you know, there's got to be something different here. But you know, I've been proved wrong by so many people so far. And I think you've convinced me, and I've had a lifetime of Valve amplifiers. And some people are really going to be coming along just to say, what is this that people are talking about that could possibly replace my Tone King, Friedman, Marshall, Wampler, whatever they're playing with, you know? It's
but
like
the an interesting note on that is like, so we actually, how do I phrase this? So I think traditionally, like people tend to think like analog or digital, and they've been very separate, right? They've been 2 different camps.
Yeah.
We don't view Quad Cortex as that because, quite honestly, we absolutely love amplifiers. We love pedals. We wouldn't be here. We wouldn't be doing this, and we wouldn't have pioneered technology to capture those if we didn't. Like that's just fact. And there's something amazing about, you know, turning up a Tone King and like absolutely ripping through it. Like there's a time and a place for that. We view this as like a bridge device where you can mix analog and digital. You can have the best of both worlds. Sometimes it's not convenient to take the 64 Vox with you somewhere, but it's always convenient to take this. So when you can't do that, do this. And when there's a time and a place to do that, do that. We love that. Do it.
Yeah.
So the thing I think a lot of your customers and users will find is that we're not trying to replace the Tone King. We're not trying to replace the Friedman. We're trying to give you something that lets you expand and use that in a better way, should you wish to. And, you know, if you don't have a Tone King or a Friedman or something, then this is it. Yeah, this isn't subtractive in any way. We're not saying to have this bin these. Like, this is just another amazing tool. And we made this to answer some problems that musicians had. We made this to make life with guitar better in some way, give you more time playing. That's the thing. We want you to spend more time playing, recording, writing, gigging.
Well,
So
feedback and numbers would suggest that you're actually answering those questions as we speak.
it's been wild, yeah. Like we
it
couldn't
must
have
be
imagined.
a crazy ride over the last 2 years, really, for you.
Yeah. I feel like there's always an imposter syndrome thing from, I guess,
Yeah.
everyone. I think it's a universal human experience, but
Yeah.
as a company, I think we feel like we're hanging onto the back of a rocket and just holding on for dear life.
Yeah, keep holding, please.
That's
I mean,
it.
we're loving it too, and on behalf of everybody, and we'll have some content after the events as well. But for everybody that can get down to see it live as well,
Yeah.
we're so excited, and thank you so much for coming to Dubai. You're always welcome.
Don't say that. You'll never get rid of me.
I'll hold you to that. Thank
Amazing,
you.
man. Thank you so
Bye-bye.
much.